Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here.
So, as I understand, your family is also intertwined in the history of Shearer Cottage. Is that right?
Right, I'm a direct descendant of Charles and Henrietta Shearer.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so
Mhm.
first, for our audiences who aren't familiar, can you tell us what Shearer Cottage is?
Well, first of all, my great grandparents who opened Shearer Cottage were born down south. My great grandfather was born enslaved in Virginia, and my great grandmother was born free in Virginia. And they met at Hampton, where he graduated in 1880. And they decided to move north for a better life and a freer life. Charles Shearer was a devout Baptist, and he joined one of the first integrated churches in America, the Tremont Temple in Boston. And they had religious retreats to Martha's Vineyard,
Mm-hmm.
where they had a Baptist tabernacle. So my great grandfather, having visited with his family to the island, they decided they wanted to buy property here. They had been coming to the island since 1885, but then they decided they wanted to buy property here. So my great grandmother, who was an entrepreneur, she actually bought a piece of land in 1903, and she opened a laundry to help support her family summers on Martha's Vineyard. Charles was working as the head waiter at the Parker House, which is a well known hotel that still exists in Boston. So, when at that time, there were very few Black families on Martha's Vineyard. And when you came to visit Martha's Vineyard, you tended to have to go stay with one of your friends if you were Black,
Mm-hmm.
because you weren't welcome at the other inns on the island. So Charles and Henrietta, I think, saw a business opportunity. Again, he was in hospitality, and she had purchased this land. And she said, she and he together said, let's open an inn that catered to African Americans who were not welcome at other establishments on the island at that time. So they did that in 1912. They opened an inn, a 12-room inn, that ran in conjunction with the laundry for until Henrietta passed in 1917. And you're showing some of the pictures of some of our guests, some of whom were internationally as well as nationally known. Harry T. Burley, who's credited with saving the Negro spirituals in terms of prior to his writing them down, they were passed on mostly by word of mouth. Um, Adam Clayton Powell, you have a picture of him. He came with his father, Adam Clayton Powell Sr., Lillian Avanti, who's recognized as one of the first African American opera singers known internationally. Uh, Paul Robeson, Ethel Waters. I mean, the guest list were people who could afford to take vacations on Martha's Vineyard, but they weren't necessarily welcomed on it. So that's what my family was involved in since the early 1900s. And the inn is still exists. We did close it during COVID in 2020, and I passed over the property to my son. And we're not sure if we'll be opening up an inn or just a private home that's still known as Shearer Cottage. The main thing is for us to honor the legacy of what was my great grandparents. I mean, that's what's most important. And in the process, it's like you mentioned generational wealth. I don't think we realized what we were doing early on, but I have a letter from Charles Shearer's daughter, my great aunt Sadie, who ran it after her mom passed. Um, and in this letter, they needed to go for a loan. And she sent a letter to all the family that owned it because it was passed down to various children in the family. Um, she needed to have the family sign off so that to get a loan. But she, in this letter, she said, my father would like to keep this property in the family. And that's something that my family has always felt. We need to respect the legacy of Charles and Henrietta Shearer. Charles was born enslaved. They were worked very hard to accomplish buying this property, and we should hold on to it for them. Now, in the process, we all were involved with working at Shearer Cottage as a family. We all supported it. We visited. It was not only the center of the African American community on Martha's Vineyard in the early 1900s, it was the center of our family. So we all loved it, and it prospered. And during, that's not to say that there weren't times where there were tough times, but if there were, the family would donate their own money to keep the inn running, pay the taxes, the insurance, wherever we needed to do. And that was all, again, more so than saying we have to keep, you know, generational wealth going. It was more to say we want to keep the property that our grandparents, our great grandparents, whatever it is, started, was very much respected by the town of Oak Bluffs, and all through its years, and we need to keep that going. And in the process, we have managed to hold on to property on Martha's Vineyard for more than one generation, because that's what we've been here, and we feel it's very important to do that so that we can pass it on to the next generation. And thankfully we have, because it is so expensive now to buy property. It's very expensive. And thank God that we have some of these properties that we have had in our family, that have been in our family for generations.
It's beautiful. And I thought of a question in terms of, we know what Shearer Cottage started as, and over time, as you guys have maintained it, how have you kind of seen that purpose or that foundation continue to evolve over the years?
It has, and it's interesting because um, my grandson and my son, my children are very much involved in the community of Oak Bluffs. My grandson has he and his business partner do a soul fest, and they've been doing this for 5 years. Bringing in actors and entertainers, and having like a week long of activities. Could be in the music area, but they could have yoga dancing. They could have, they're sort of trying to reach the a person and all aspects of the person, entertain them, keep them healthy, whatever. And I see that my grandson and his group have a party. I think they've had it at least 5 or 6 years on one of the grandparents' properties, and they bring maybe 400 or 500 young African American kids from Boston. I mean, it's really a multicultural group, but primarily African American kids from Boston for the day to have they call it a darty, and it's an all day party at this property. So I do see that the next generations are carrying on the legacy that our, my grandparents and parents have kept up, and great grandparents. So that's a positive thing. So many families that have been here for a couple of times, when the children help inherit property, very often they'll sell it. And maybe it's because they need the money for a college education, they want to buy their own home, whatever. And I try to encourage families that are fortunate enough to have property on Martha's Vineyard to try to keep it, to make the sacrifices that may be necessary to keep this property. And it might be necessary to rent it. This is something that we've always done, is we had an inn, and my family hasn't been opposed to renting, and I rent my own home in order to help with my existence here. So if I would say there's one thing that I like to see, and I like in terms of generations, I'd like to encourage people to look at how they can keep this property that perhaps their grandparents or parents bought in the family. Make those sacrifices, rent if you have to, but do that because Martha's Vineyard is just becoming more and more popular, and
Mhm.
it's very difficult to buy into it now unless you're wealthy.
Mhm. So in then kind of to that point when we're talking about that importance, besides simply just maintaining the family legacy in the name, why is it important to whether it's property or other aspects of continuing your lineage? Why is that particularly important, especially for younger generations to learn about and maintain themselves?
Well, I think in terms of it's important for us as a family I mean, my grandchildren are 6 generations that have spent summers on the island, either have owned property or have just been here at their family's home. I think we as a family are in a good example to other African American families that have come here, perhaps first generation or second generation,
Mhm.
that it just shows them that you can keep going, you can keep this, you can develop your own legacy. We have a legacy we're trying to hold on to, but we're encouraging, and I think by being here and by having opportunities like this to share our legacy, it shows that it can be done. So many people might think, oh, I can't do it. It's hard work. It's very much hard work, has always been hard work. It was hard work for Charles and Henrietta Shearer. It's been hard work from my grandparents. It's been hard work for my parents. It's been hard work for me and the children that come after me, but it's so valuable. It is so warming to you to be part of this community
Mhm.
and be recognized, by the African American Heritage Trail. We're recognized at the museum. It's makes one very proud.
So, I really would love, I have to actually go and do my research because I would love to just go down a little deep dive because over 100 years, that is a lot of history, that is a lot of lineage on
Right.
that property. So what do you, when you think about the future, I know you've touched on it a little bit about, I like what you said about creating your own legacy. So when you think about what's next for Shearer Cottage, what is that legacy that you will pass down as well?
Well, well, we as a family have agreed that it won't be sold out the family. We'll try to keep that from happening so that it can continue on being in the property for the next 100 years. Um, I think that's perhaps one of the most important things that we can share, and I can share with my family. Yeah, not only were we able to give African Americans a, a place to stay with great food. They had they were great cooks from the South, and they, served meals. Not only were we able to do that, but we were able to hold on to property. And I feel as though people through the museum can look at us as a family and say, we're an example. And there are many families like us on Martha's Vineyard, Black families that have been here generations and are doing the same thing, doing exactly the same thing. They're proud of their legacy here and they want to continue being here for the future. I met my husband here, my parents met here, my grandparents met here. I mean, there's so many, other than having a business, there's just so many side stories. Um, the Commodores, my cousin met the Commodores when they were young group in New York, and they spent about 3 summers. Lionel Richie and the whole group spent about 3 summers at Shearer Cottage, honing their act before just some of the first places they played on the beach at different small clubs before they contacted Suzanne DePass, who was Suzanne DePass was connected with Motown
Mhm.
and a family friend. And my cousin went to her and said, can you get, my group an audition? And she did. And that's another very important example of being on Martha's Vineyard and having a legacy here. The Brown family had been here for generations, and we're very close to our family. And that networking that one does within our community you never know how it's going to reward you. In this case, my cousin went to Suzanne and said, can you help me with Motown? And she did. But I know many people meet others on this island, and they make these kind of connections, and it benefits them, not just in their personal life, but in their professional life as well.
And how have you been able to kind of overcome some of those challenges over the years with preserving the site?
Well, when we've had to chip in to keep it going, we as families have. I've always worked there.
Mhm.
And that's another thing I think that was because it was the hub of our family. You tended to go there, see what new family had come in town, because family were constantly visiting the Shearer Cottage.
Mhm.
But you learned that you had to work in order to succeed. I think as a child, I worked at Shearer Cottage. My children worked at Shearer Cottage, and they said they learned about handling money. They got a paycheck, but part of it had to go in the bank so that they could bring it home at the end of the summer to buy clothes or do some things. And of course, some of it was spent on Circuit Avenue, which is the main drag in Oak Bluffs, with food and games and arcades and whatnot, flying horses. Um, but I think I learn, and I teach my children the same thing, that you know we're here, we're fortunate to be here, but we have to be smart about it. We have to be smart about what we do with our money, and I think we've all learned that just by being a part of Shearer Cottage through the summers and trying to keep this business working and surviving and benefiting the community.
And just in closing thoughts, see you getting blown up, Miss Allen. Sounds like
Uh,
no, you're good. No, it's a busy day. I don't want to keep you too much longer. But my last question that I do want to ask you is when you look back, what do you want people when they think of Shearer's Cottage? What mark do you hope it will leave on the world?
I think what I'm sorry about this.
No, 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 please, it's okay.
Um, I'm going to try this to myself. What I hope that people recall, and from let's just say this, new people's I've known people that are new to the island. I've met them, and they say, well, how did it happen that African Americans have such a strong presence today? How
Mhm.
did it happen that interracial couples can walk down the street and feel very comfortable? Black couples can walk down and feel very comfortable. White couples can, but there's a sense of belonging here for African Americans. And I think that's something that's very important that has developed over the years. Some people don't recognize why it's here, but that's why it's great that the museum and stories like you tell the history so that this just didn't happen. It
Mhm.
just didn't happen that African Americans were gravitating to Martha's Vineyard. Uh, it was a process of years of people coming before us and staying and fighting when we had to. I mean, there've been discrimination on this island. We've had to stand up to it, but loving it all along and saying we're here and we want to bring our friends and family here, and we do all that.
So, thank you so much, Miss Allen. I personally am going to go do some research on Shearer's Cottage. But thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your family legacy
Oh,
and
you're welcome.
to your family for bringing Shearer's Cottage here and allowing African Americans to have a place. If you have anything else you wanted to add before I let you go to your
No,
phone calls.
no, I thank you so much. Sorry for that interference, but
No, no, it's okay.
I'm very, I'm 82 years old, and I look back and I say to myself, what would my life be without Shearer Cottage in it? It's been such a wonderful experience to be part of it, to keep it going, and to know that it will be here in the future as well.
That's a perfect end
Thank
note, Miss Allen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye. Have a good one.